Here's a story that's in need of spiritual resilience. George Aretes was arrested during a mass immigration raid in Southern California. He is a disabled U.S. Army veteran. He's a U.S. citizen born in Ventura City, California. He was deployed to Iraq. He has no police record. He works as a security guard at Glass House Farms in Camarillo, California. It's a cannabis farm. On Thursday, July 10th, Mr. Retes was arriving at work when several federal agents in military-style gear with face masks surrounded his car, broke his window, pepper sprayed him, and dragged him out. He repeatedly told them he's a U.S. citizen. Mr. Retes was held without charges for 3 days in downtown Los Angeles. He was confined to a cell after he became emotionally distraught over his ordeal. He missed his daughter's 3rd birthday party that Saturday. Federal agents never told him why he was arrested. He wasn't really arrested, he was abducted. They did not allow him to contact a lawyer or his family. Both are violations of the U.S. Constitution's Bill of Rights. No person shall, I quote, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, end quote, the Fifth Amendment. Authorities never let Mr. Retes shower or change clothes despite being covered in tear gas and pepper spray. He said that his hands burned throughout the first night of his ordeal. That Sunday, he was released with no charges and no explanation. He was basically locked up for 3 days for no reason whatsoever, except for the color of his skin. So today's message is going to be a little bit interactive. What if I didn't tell you what country this happened in? Where in the world would you think such a thing could have happened? The floor is open to your suggestions. Russia, she said. North Korea. I heard something else. Hungary. Any other places? China. Ukraine. Venezuela. Steve says a year ago, all those places, but now it's not the first place he would think of. Thank you. So I have a reflective question to think about for a moment. What are your reactions? What are your feelings? What are your emotions about Mr. Retes's ordeal? Please sit with the story, the incident, in silence for a moment and think about how you're feeling about it. And I have a final question for sharing, and I'm going to invite you to come up to the microphone and share at the microphone. How do you imagine you would have reacted in Mr. Retes' situation? What if it was you who got stopped, your windows broken, peppered sprayed, dragged out of the car, and thrown in jail without any explanation? How would you have reacted? And I invite you to come forward and share briefly in the microphone so people could hear.
As a straight, very white male, it's really hard for me even to put myself in that place. I've just never had to not have the privilege that I was born with.
I would have been so angry. I would have cried like a child, and then I'd sue their ass.
There seems to be a theme here. I was just filled with rage, even hearing Reverend Rudra talk about it, and I've already read about it several times on social media and the news. And I've learned through life that you never know what you're going to do in a situation until you're in it. But I hope I would have given them a huge piece of my mind, because I don't have much physical strength, but man, I've got a sharp tongue and a big mouth.
Thank you for your various sharings about this. Do you have one more thing?
Until we gained collectively our power and choose to go after this kind of thing, it'll continue, especially with the current administration in office. So there's two things we can do. One, get politically organized, and two, sue the bastards.
People have shared a wealth of emotions and reactions, from peaceable to resignation to a violent response in such a situation. It's unsettling. It's hard to figure out, what would I do if something like that happened to me? What if I were in that situation? We live in very unsettling times in our United States. The American Latinx communities and the trans communities are suffering under targeted and relentless attacks in our country. Mr. Retta's situation is not unique. It keeps repeating over and over again. Every week, at least one such news story makes it to the national news, where people begin to pay attention to it. And how many stories don't make it to the national news? How many stories are like this are stuck in local news? Another abduction and detention of a Hispanic U.S. citizen returning from vacation happened just this past week at the Dallas airport. Such situations are eerily reminiscent of Franz Kafka's novel, The Trial. It tells the story of Joseph K., a man who is arrested and prosecuted by a remote, inaccessible authority. He is repeatedly interrogated, but he is never charged with anything. His alleged crime is never revealed. And at the end of the novel, he is simply executed. So creativity, art, music, literature, dance, these are all creative actions, and these creative actions are forms of spiritual resilience. Creative spiritual resilience resists inhumanity with beauty. In response to such incidents, the United Church of Christ at its General Synod 2 weeks ago declared ICE raids as, quote unquote, domestic terrorism. The resolution reads, I quote, ICE agents working without uniforms, wearing masks, or refusing to identify themselves, end quote. It goes on to condemn the human rights violations that happen in ICE custody and at ICE detention centers. And it calls on churches to pray with and to serve immigrants, migrants, and refugees, as well as to speak out prophetically. Prophetic action is spiritual resilience. Prophetic spiritual resilience speaks truth to power. It highlights what is going on and shares this information so that people know about it. In this climate, some of us may lose heart. And we question ourselves, how could people who purport to be law enforcement treat people in such ways? So here's another question for sharing, and I think Steve already addressed this question in part. What are your views of law enforcement in this country? You can shout out your answers. What are your views of law enforcement in this country? mixed, uneven, depends on the law enforcement, lack of trust, racism. Where are you when this happened? It can happen in this county, and there have been news reports that this has happened in Livingston County. Thank you. This is a hard question. This is an especially hard question for us as white folks. We went to grade school, and probably once a year we had Officer Friendly show up and teach us all the good things that the police do. But it's a confusing and contradictory situation, because when we compare what Officer Friendly tells us with what is really going on with the police in our country, it leads to question our values, our American values. We believe in the American values of democracy, equality for all, and the rule of law. Those are core United States values enshrined in our US Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So we expect police to serve and protect, as their motto suggests. But we also face the widespread examples of police brutality across our country, in particular targeted against the Black, Indigenous, people of color communities in our country. But if I had asked the same question to an African American or Hispanic American congregation on a Sunday morning, I would have gotten radical different answers. People in these communities, parents in these communities, have talks with their children and their teenagers about dealing with the police from a very young age. Beware of the police. Never ask a police officer for directions or if you're in trouble. It's not going to end up good for you. Hold your hands up if a police approaches you and starts talking to you. Comply with the police. Don't argue with the police. Don't resist an officer. Also, do not consent to a search. These are common sense, life-saving rules that African Americans and Hispanic Americans have been passing down to their children for generations. And it's something that us as white folks don't think about. Can I show of hands, how many of your parents had a talk with you about these things when you were a child? Ooh, one person. Thank you. We may lose faith in democracy. The United States is creating a great nation out of many people who are joining together for the common good. The Native Americans of this continent, white immigrants and their descendants, the descendants of emancipated, formerly enslaved Africans, as well as African immigrants and their descendants, the Native Hispanic populations of our country, as well as Hispanic immigrants and their descendants, Asian immigrants and their descendants. Our country has an unofficial motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one. It's inscribed on the Great Seal of the United States and many of our coins. We are a country that out of many people forms one new nation built in this great diversity. The late great President John F. Kennedy coined the phrase, "We are a nation of immigrants." He highlights the contributions of immigrants to the United States. Each wave of immigration makes our country better for everyone else and for the next generations of our country. And President Kennedy also confronts the discrimination and the waves of nativism and bigotry that immigrants have faced and still face today in our country. Our country became the first multiracial, multicultural, multireligious, multilingual nation in the world. We were the first. We are unique about this. This is our heritage that we should be exceedingly proud of. And we are striving so hard with such difficulty, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, to overcome our racist, segregationist history. So to pursue these goals, what sort of spiritual resilience can we muster in our times? The historian Timothy Snyder has studied authoritarianism in the 20th century, and his latest book is 20 Lessons on Fighting Tyranny from the 20th Century. He advises us, one of his 20 lessons, it's his 18th one. Maybe the 20 recommendations he has should be plastered on all of our school walls instead of the 10 commandments. His 18th advice to us is, be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Be calm when people like Mr. Reyes are arrested. Be calm if you end up in such a situation yourself. He continues to explain, modern tyranny is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, remember that the authoritarians exploit such events in order to consolidate power. Do not fall for it. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. During World War II, the British coined the phrase, be calm and carry on. Snyder revises that phrase as, be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Remaining calm is spiritual resilience. Peace, calmness, shalom, salam, shanti, metta. These are core spiritual goals of the world's religions. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. But how can we remain calm in such situations? That's the challenge. The Buddha inspires us to kindle, as in the sense to tend a small flame, to kindle metta, loving kindness for all living beings, since all living beings face suffering in their lives. Rabbi Hillel the Elder paraphrases Leviticus 19:8 to summarize the entire Torah in one sentence. That which you find hateful, do not do to others. The rest is commentary. Go and live it. Jesus taught that the greatest commandment is love your neighbor. Notice my red cap? Beloveds, our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition reminds us and inspires us that love is the core of our values. Our Universalist ancestors in faith emphasized that universal salvation comes only through universal love for all people. They taught that God is love and God calls us to love, and love is the basis, or should be the basis, of all of our human interactions with each other. We are saved. We save ourselves. We save each other. We save the world through love. That's the universalist, that's the core, essential universalist message of our heritage. And then in our historic Unitarian covenant from over a century ago, and I don't have a hymnal prompt with me, it's number 473 in the gray hymnals, we remind ourselves, as from our Unitarian side, that love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Number 473 in our hymnals. Over 100 years ago, I think getting close to 150 years ago, That was the guiding principle of Unitarianism. So that phrase, I think that covenant from the 1800s summarizes the entire Unitarian Universalist, and I think it's equally valid today. So when someone asks you, oh, what's a Unitarian Universalist? Use that covenant to explain what Unitarian Universalism is about. Treating each other, treating all people, all sentient beings with love is spiritual resilience. When someone flicks you off on the road, treat them with love. When you see an encounter, an incident, and it requires an intervention, intervene with love. When you get angry, when something makes you mad, when something makes you rightfully mad because of a grave injustice like what happened to Mr. Reyes and hundreds of other people in our country, respond to yourself with love. It's spiritual resilience. Our shared Unitarian Universalist values recenter our historic commitment to love. And I quote, "Love is the power that holds us together and is the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. In the face of hatred, we practice love and we love our neighbor. In the face of injustice, we practice love and seek justice for all. In the face of despair, we practice love and we create the beloved community for all." And I'm going to close with a quote that comes from a t-shirt, and I've seen it in so many different places and on so many different posters. And I don't know what the source of it is, but this equally should be posted in every single schoolroom across our country. Love thy neighbor, thy immigrant neighbor, thy black neighbor, thy atheist neighbor, thy Muslim neighbor, thy depressed neighbor, thy LGBTQIA neighbor, thy disabled neighbor, thy indigenous neighbor, thy Jewish neighbor, thy political neighbor, thy elderly neighbor, thy unhoused neighbor, thy Latino neighbor, thy addicted neighbor, thy Palestinian neighbor. And the final one, love thy blank neighbor. Fill in the blank.